video, and today, you guys, we are going to be making the birch tree cake kit. I love trees, and birch trees are super pretty, and this one's just cute, and it's so good for so many occasions. Like, it's good for birthday, it's good for anniversary, you want to be sweet and romantic, or you just want to be like, yay, trees. Like, I love this cake so much, but there are a couple things we need to go over before we actually make this masterpiece today. So number one is you want to make sure the sticker on your My Make Studio box says Birch Tree Cake Kit. If it doesn't, no worries. You're probably looking for another video, so go ahead and stop this one and head back to our YouTube channel and find the video that is titled the same as whatever sticker is on your box. If it does say Birch Tree Cake Kit, welcome, it's gonna be super fun. So before we can actually decorate it, we need a cake. So inside your box is a box of cake mix, and on the back of the cake mix box are directions on how to bake your cake mix. So just follow those along and bake your cakes, and if you're like, well, Chayla, I don't have any pans, not to worry, because inside your box are 2 pans. So you can grease these up however you like, with butter, with spray, with oil, whatever it fits you to grease them up. And then go ahead and follow the instructions on the back of that cake mix box, bake your cakes, and then let them come out of the oven. And before we do anything else to them, you want them to be nice and cool. So they don't have to be super cold. And I would recommend cold, but not like frozen. Frozen is fine, but because we are going to be doing a lot of smoothing out, that part is actually a lot easier when your cake is colder. It's a lot easier to work with, and you're less likely going to break it or rip it apart while you decorate it. So once they come out of the oven, let them chill off, and then go ahead and pop them in the fridge for a little bit to where they're kind of cool to the touch, and then you can bring them out and we can decorate them. And inside your box was also a cake board that we can set our cakes on, which is awesome. Aside from that, everything else is in here except some kind of towel, like a hand towel, a paper towel, kitchen towel. It is always recommend having a towel because we can put our open icings on it. We can use it to wipe our fingers. Just always recommend having a towel. And then you will also need a handy dandy pair of scissors. This is mainly for cutting like the little bags open and whatnot. And then you will also need a butter knife today. This is only going to be for the first part of your cake. If you have a metal cake spatula, that would also work, but this is going to be for the leveling part of our cake, which is actually what we're gonna start with. So when you have all those things, you're ready to decorate with me. So if you're not quite there yet, go ahead and pause me. I'll be here when you're done, but if you are all ready to go, I'm gonna go ahead and set up my area, and we're gonna go over how to make an awesome birch tree cake today. And we're back. So we're gonna level our cakes, and what I mean by that is, if you look here, it sounds like this, not like this. Well, we want that to be flat, so we're just gonna cut this little dome off. Now, if yours is much more rounded than mine, or if yours is much flatter than mine, don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong. We ship these all over the country, and so many things affect how things bake, like the weather outside, humidity, lack of humidity, high altitude, all kinds of stuff. Plus everybody's ovens are unique and do their own thing. So if yours doesn't look like mine, it is okay. Like, it probably depends on where you are in the country. If they're more rounded, that just means you have more cakes to eat or make cake pops with later. If they're more flat, it means you have less work to do. Either way is totally fine, but this is where you'll want a butter knife or a metal spatula, depending on whatever feels good for you. And we are just going to cut this off. So let me move this. And I'm just going to get it where I can see that it has gone into my cake. And I'm going to go back and forth, making sure not to get my fingers. And then I honestly save the pans that I baked my cake in to put these excess pieces in, because like I was saying, you can either have them as a snack while you decorate, or you can save them and make some cake pops with them later, or you can even put them in pudding, and you make all kinds of little extra desserts if you want to. That way you use all your cake. And if that's not for you, totally fine. I usually go the snacking route, but every now and then I'll make some cake pops. Ta-da! So this part, the part that we cut, is going to face up towards the sky. And I'm going to put it right in the center of my board. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. my cake is really, really cold. That's why I'm having to apply a lot of pressure here to cut it. There we go. Perfect. Now we're not going to set it on there just yet. I'm going to go ahead and wipe some of my crumbs real fast. 1 second. So what we need to do now is we need to put filling in here. Now, you've got 2 options for that. Since I have a chocolate cake, I am personally going to use not all of my chocolate, but probably about 3/4 of it. Maybe a little, maybe a little less than that. But I'm gonna save like this much icing right here, and then I'm gonna use all of this down here to fill my cake. The reason I'm doing that with a chocolate cake is because I want much more white icing on the outside to be able to show that it is a birch tree. So I want to use as much white icing as possible for the outside of my cake. And using part of this icing, if I end up having like a little bit that needs more, I can put a blob of white icing on there and it'd be just fine. If you're doing vanilla, I recommend that you use your white icing instead of your chocolate. You could use your chocolate if you wanted, but you don't have as much to cover up. And it looks very, with the vanilla, it looks very like birchy to have those different tones streaking through it of your cake, your white icing, and your chocolate. It's same thing for this one, but I need more white showing than chocolate. So that's why I'm going to fill with chocolate today. But if you have vanilla cake, I recommend you fill with the white icing, but you can fill with the chocolate instead if you'd like. All the words. All right. So I'm just going to take this off. I'm going to remove this little seal. And then I'm going to keep in mind that I'm saving about this much because I will want to add some streaks to my cake and to do a pretty carving section. So that way I have some to play with and draw with later. Alrighty. And then it's up to you how you fill this. You can make polka dots, you can do ziggy-zaggies, you can do swirlies. I personally do rings. That's just what works for my brain. So I just make a couple rings. And then when my icing starts to come out, I start to squeeze it down and then fold it like a tube of toothpaste to help push it all out. Cool, all right, so I'm at the part where I want to save this much. So I'm just going to put my lid back on it and banish it for now. I'm going to grab a white, because we want all of this inside filled in, because this is a filling, so that way when everybody goes to get a piece of cake, when they cut it, everybody has a slice of the filling that's inside. That way we have no gaps going on. So I'm just going to do this. Plus I love vanilla and chocolate combo, so this is like right up my alley. Look at this. Good save. So usually what I do is if there are gaps in your rings, I say grab the spatula that came in your box and to treat your filling like it is a very nervous cat. Like it's just jumped in your lap. You've been trying to get its attention all day. You have to touch it. You have to pet this cat. But you don't want to freak it out. So very lightly just pet your icing until you cover up those gaps. That way it is again so everyone gets an even like slice of the inside, the filling, when you go to eat it. My rings are looking pretty good, but I've already started this process, so I'm just gonna finish it out. Plus it makes the inside look cool. Look at this. It's all like streaky. Yes. Oh, this is just a pretty design on itself. Like, you guys. So cool. All right, so now that that's in there, I'm gonna take my other cake, and the part that we cut is going to go face first into the icing. So you flip it upside down and whoop it on there. Now you might need to play a little bit of Tetris depending on how you cut it. So you might need to move your cake around a little bit till it's like locked into place. But this is good for me. Sweet. Plus the upside, this is a tree stump. So if it's cattywampus, I actually think it'll help it look more like realistic at the end. So I wouldn't worry too much about having a perfectly straight cake, honestly. Alrighty, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and grab my white icing and we're gonna do our sides. So what I'm going to do is with my white icings, I'm going to create lines all the way around my cake and then I'm going to smooth them out So I'll put my lines on here and then I'll talk about smoothing them. If you would rather do polka dots and zigzags instead, you totally can. But for me personally, putting lines on it makes it come out much more even, and I get a nicer coating and less crumbs when I do it that way. That's just what works for me. Everybody's brains are different, so if that way does not feel good for you, don't feel like you have to do it that way. But I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then usually I would have them right next to each other, but I actually do want to incorporate a little bit of the chocolate cake going on with this. So I'm just going to leave a slight space. Nice. And then we will need some for the top. So about the same amount I saved for my chocolate icing, save about this much of one of your whites for the top of your cake. So I'm already at that point with this one. I'm going to set it down. I'm going to take my other white. And I'm just going to keep making my lines, and then we'll talk about some ways you can smooth it out. Ta-da! So now I'm going to take my spatula, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the chocolate. And then when I smooth things out, I like to move it around up and down and then go like this. But if you would rather just go like this and swirl it around, you totally can. Again, everybody's brains work differently. I feel a lot better when I go like this all the way around and then do a coating versus blah. It's whatever feels right for you. But I'm just going to move it around a bit. Yes, I'm getting some of that filling onto the sides. Perfect. And then I'm going to go like this, because we actually like use the streaking as part of the design for this, which is I think really cool. Like, to toot my own horn, but I really think it's a cool way to incorporate it, because one of my favorite things about cake decorating that I feel like people don't talk about is learning to work with your mistakes. And I think that people would usually see this mixed icing and the crumbs and think it's a mistake, but it's not. And I think that's really cool. Ta-da! So we're just going like that all the way around. If you have some gaps, it's okay because it works. But I am going to try and fill it in more on the sides, and then I'll come back to you. All right. So yeah, it's kind of messy. It's kind of messy, but most of it's covered, which is what we want, because now it is time to bust out that other thing that is inside your box, which is this. This is one of my favorite tools of all time. I love it. It's great for cakes, and it's also good if you're ever making like rolls, like anything with dough. You can use it as a dough cutter, but this is an icing comb. So I'm going to show you some different ways that this works, but first of all, we're going to start with this side. So I'm going to place it. I'm also going to move my cake to the center just a little bit. Place it on the side of my cake, and then I'm going to turn it just a little bit like a creaky window. And then you put your hand on the top, and you can use it to pet your cake. If you have a lazy Susan at home, you can put your cake on that and then whoosh. But if not, just do it in little sections, because it works, because bark isn't smooth. So we're smoothing it out a little bit, but we are going to rough it up here in a little bit too. And this is just kind of to help get more extra coating. Yes. Oh, I'm already very satisfied with this. Okay. So I personally really like this gap. But what I'm going to do now is how I was like, save some chocolate icing. I'm going to save I'm going to put just a little bit on the sides. Just a little. We're not using all of what's left of that chocolate icing here, because we are going to put a little bit on top too. But, oh, I didn't even talk about it. So I was just in the zone. These are where your tips are. We're taking out the one that is just a circle. And then the lid for your icings, if you pop this piece out, then this becomes the coupler ring, which is what attaches them to the icings, which is just so cool. And then sometimes the tips want to play tag. They're like, no, no, you can't catch me, no. If they're doing that, they will go on here. You might just need to move them around a little bit and apply some pressure. It happens sometimes, but they do go on there. So it should be on like this, and it doesn't have to be on so tight that you can't take it off, but you need to be able to do this and it not go flying across the room. Squeezing my icing down, getting a nice fold. So I just make little dashes and just a couple around the cake, or in some little circles. So I'll do a circle here. I'll do a dash, dash, circle, dash, circle. You can also look at a picture of a birch tree if that helps you. I'm a very visual learner person, so there's nothing wrong with having a reference for this part. But now that I have it on there, so see, just very little dashes and circles and lines. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off. That way I'm not covering up these new dashes with this icing. Have a clean start. And then I'm just going to give it a swoop. And this time I'm not pressing as hard as I was before. And even before I wasn't like, just a little bit of pressure, but right here it's very light. It's very similar to that nervous cat amount of pressure because we are just trying to streak the streaks that the lines and dots that we just added. We're not trying to get any of the other icing. It's very light. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm going to go around just a little bit more because I'm getting this really cool streakage going on. So I'm just doing that light pressure over and over in circles. And I'm also kind of like, I'm very slightly moving here. So I'm going swoop, and then I'm moving it a little up, and then swoop, and then a little back down, and then swoop, to create these patterns that are going on. That's so awesome. This is so freaking awesome. So I do want this gap just a little more covered. So I am going to put just a little bit of my white, just very little because I still need some for the top. And then I'm going to pat it with, you can also use a spatula for this part if you want. But I just want that gap just covered a little bit more than it was. Yeah, just a little bit. Just made the hole a little less big. Yes, this is exactly what I want. So, I'm not going to use this part on my sides, but you can use it on your sides. I'm going to use it on the top. I'm trying to think of how to show you. I'll do it on the back so you can see. So this will make really big lines. This will make medium lines, and this will make tiny. I personally like the tiny ones for this, so I'm just gonna do a little one back here. Either way, you wanna smooth your cake out like this first before you decide to go in. This is if you want to go the extra mile and add a little bit more texture to your bark. You can then do the same thing with one of the riveted sides, and it will put lines in your cake. It is totally up to you if you want to do that. I personally, since I put this here, I'm only going to add a couple little sections that have it. Yeah, oh yes. Okay, good call. Good call, you guys. But I'm not going to go all the way around with it. Yeah. Just add a little texture. And that's not, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And that is using this really tiny one, but you could also use this one or this one instead if you wanted. I recommend very lightly doing it on one part of your cake, seeing if you like it, and then if you don't, you can go back to your flat side and re-smooth it out, but you don't want to do that too many times because you will eventually end up taking all this icing off. But you should be able to do at least one test with it to see if you like it or not. Sweet. So now I'm going to squeeze the rest of my white icing onto the top of my cake now that I'm done with the sides. And then I don't really care that there's stuff on here. So I'm just going to lightly, I'm going to do that petting motion again to try and get my icing to the edges. I'm not worried about it being smooth. I'm mainly just trying to cover up gaps, and it also can be pretty thin. You can see your cake shining through. That is okay. Usually when we do things like this, we don't want any of our cake to be shining through, but this is one of the few times that like you want your cake to be shining through. I really do love this cake. I'm also just such like a tree stump gal. Like I did not outgrow climbing trees. Like I still tree climb. It's awesome. Okay. Yes. And I personally kind of like having this ring here because what we're going to do next is go back to our chocolate icing, and then I'm going to save like this much, which I will use as soon as we're done with this part. But I'm going to just create a few circles so we can get some tree rings. Cool. Let's see how much I've got left here. I think I can do one more, and then I'm going to stop. Ta-da! So you can leave it like that, or what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do that feather petting with this. You can use the spatula instead if you want, but I like the icing comb. And I'm just kind of dragging it almost in a circle, but not quite. Looks so cool. Okay. So we got it like this. And then I'm going to take that tiny side, because that's the one I like, put it in the center. And go like this until they have met, and lift it up. So then I can use this icing for if there is another part on my side that I'm like, you know what, I want this a little more covered, which I actually do want a little more right here, and I kind of want it messy and sticking out because I've never seen a perfectly smooth tree. Like there'll be some that are pretty smooth, but I've never seen one that's like, dang, it's 100% smooth. You know what I mean? And then I will just lightly pat that section that I added the icing to. Yes. Fabulous. Cool. So then when you're done, got some tree rings on the top. Now, if you feel like this is too chocolatey looking, you can mix up your icing a bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and do it so you can see. But I do a I just put the flat end of a mallet spatula. So let's use our spatula from our kit. And just do a circular to make it more tan and whatnot. And then you can go and you can do your lines again. If you feel like it's too dark. I personally was okay with that, but I wanted to show you how to do that. And this is going to look cool too. So win-win, I feel like. Yeah. And then a little bit dark. Cut right there. So I'm just gonna just do the center. Sweet. It's so neat. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands, and then when I come back, we will talk about decorating the outsides of our cake. So I personally want to start with the carving section, and then we will move on to some yellow flowers and some fondant flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands just so I'm, trying to keep it clean as I go, and I'll be right back. Magic! Alrighty, so I personally like to pick a spot to be the front of my cake, and I like to draw a heart in the chocolate icing and then put initials in it. I'm going to do C&T for, my life, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You could put a smiley face or any kind of cool carving that you would want to put in your fake tree. And I do need to turn my cake to be able to see it for this part. But if you're getting worried about keeping things even or the size that you want to draw something, I highly recommend that you get a toothpick so you can lightly trace what you're thinking into your cake and then just use it as a stencil to follow along. But I'm gonna freehand it. So I'm gonna, oh yeah, this is gonna be the, ta-da! But again, you can carve whatever you want, or you can draw whatever carving you want. But I'm gonna leave this like this, and then I'm gonna leave this tip on here. I still have like this much icing left, which is perfect for what I want. If you are out of chocolate icing, there is a workaround though. I like to use this for the center of my flowers. But if you're out of chocolate icing, you can use some of your red fondant. Just rip some off and roll really tiny balls, and then you can stick those into your flowers, and they also make beautiful flower centers. But I'm gonna go to my yellow, and I'm gonna remove this thing, and then I'm going to grab the tip that looks like a V or an alligator mouth, depending on how you're looking at it. That is the leaf tip. And inside, there's a booklet inside your My Make Studio box that also has a little picture of what all the tips are. If you want to see what they do, I personally don't use the grass or the star tip on this cake, but if you would like to, you totally can. It is your cake. I want you to be happy with it. One of the best parts about this is that we're all like following along and doing a thing, but everybody still puts their own spins and personalities onto it. And it's just great, because in my mind, cake decorating cakes are just art. They get to eat, which is the coolest thing ever, and art is unique just like you are. So if you want to use any of those two tips in your design, please feel free to, but I'm not going to use them today. There we go. This one was not wanting to come off. So, oh, V or alligator mouth. So when we use this, we actually want to hold it like it's an alligator mouth. So where do I want flowers? I'll make one right here, and then I'll make the rest of my flowers. I'm gonna come up to you. Okay, so you're gonna hold it like an alligator mouse. You're just gonna throw up icing all over your cake and squeeze in the same spot without moving this hand until you stop squeezing. So squeeze in the same spot, 1, 2, 3, stop, and then pull back. If you keep squeezing when you pull, it's just going to be really hangy. So if you don't want a hangy flower petal, leave it in the same spot, 1, 2, 3, stop squeezing, and then pull back. But I'm just going to do the same thing in a circle. Like so. And then I'm going to add some more to the top. I like to have flowers. I like it to look like viney flowers have grown onto my birch tree. So I'm adding my flowers now, and then I'm going to go back in and connect them with lines. But if you would rather put your lines down first, just put that round tip, go ahead and rinse it out in the sink, put it on your green, and then you can make your lines wherever you want, and then you could put your flowers on top of them if that works better for your brain. But for me today, I'm going to make my flowers first and then connect my vines to them. So I'm just going to add some flowers to the sides and the top. I'm not covering up the whole thing, but I want it to look like it's been like growing onto it, because I think it makes it look pretty and magical, and that's what I want to do today. This is also a really good way if you have a spot on your cake that you're like, I don't like it. You can cover it up. Just put a flower there. It's a good way to hide things you don't like either, while also being a pretty design piece. Ta-da! I just want them on this side. That's just how I'm feeling. All right. So now I still have this on my brown. So I'm just going to add a little tiny circle to the center of all these. And again, if you are out of brown, you have red fondant in your box. Here it is. And you can go ahead and take the red fondant out, just rip off a little piece, roll a little ball, and then you can stick that in the center as well. Or if you just want to do that instead, you totally can. But I'm going to use the chocolate icing, so I'm going to add little centers to these. And that should do it for my chocolate. And if you want, you don't have to just do one circle like I'm doing. I don't want to tilt it too much, but there's my centers. You could do like boop, boop, like little tiny ones, little multiple dots if you wanted. Totally up to you. Whatever feels right for you. Ta-da! So now I'm gonna go rinse this out in the sink. You can put it on your green icing. Usually I would recommend that. Just put it on your next icing and squeeze for a little bit. But since this is the smallest of the tips, it does take quite a long time to squeeze all of the brown out, especially since it is a darker color. So I'm gonna go ahead and just rinse it out in the sink, and then I'm going to put it right on my green. So I'll be right back. Ta-da! So now I am just going to draw some vines. So when I do vines, I like very whimsical, curvy, swirly lines. That's just what feels right for me. I don't really think there's a right or wrong way to do it. Just whatever feels right. So I'm just going to start with this flower. Going to give it a little swirly. And then connect it right there. So I just do that in between all my flowers, all along the top and the sides. I'm also going to go back in and add a green leaf here and there sticking to my vines. It's the same method we used earlier, but we hold the tip at a different angle, so I would hold off on adding leaves just yet, but that is the plan after the vines. Ta-da! Yes. Perfect. Okay, so now for the leaf. Since this is a lighter color and it's a wider nozzle, I am just going to put it on my green and squeeze a little bit. Plus, you'll kind of get like a two-tone tie-dye thing for a little bit if you want to use that in your design, but I'm just going to squeeze it right here. Okay, so this is what I mean. It doesn't last very long, but you will very briefly get this really cool tie-dye thing going on. And I'm just going to add a leaf here and there. It is still 1, 2, 3, stop and pull. But this time, instead of sideways, I'm at an up and down angle. So 1, 2, 3, stop and lift. And I'm just going to have my leaves kind of going in different directions. I'm not adding too many of them, just until I feel like it looks cute. You can even do tiny ones, like I just did one of those, like a 1, 2. This is also another good way to hide if there's another spot on your cake that you're not fond of. You can just make a swirly vine and then add a leaf to be over that spot as well. Sweet. So now I'm going to make 2 roses to go on the bottom. So to make my roses, I need this red fondant. If you've never played with fondant before, fondant is basically like Play-Doh you can eat, which is awesome. I cut the top off, and then I slide my scissors ta-da! And then you can use all this fondant. You could make a bunch of little roses to put around your cake instead. Like you could make a little border of roses. The method is just the same. You would just use less fondant per rose. You could also make a little bouquet on top if you wanted. There's a lot of ways to customize this. I am probably only going to use like 3/4 of this, and then, so I ripped off a little bit, and what I have left I'm going to rip in half, mush it up with my hands, then roll it into a ball. Move my cake so my elbow doesn't go in it. And then I do think this is easier to do on the table than in your hand, but I want you to be able to see what's going on. Plus I got a lot of cake crumbs on my workspace right now. But we're gonna take this and make a tube snake. It's up to you how long you want it to be. So this is going to be 2 big roses. So if you wanted to make a border of little roses, use about this much per rose and make a tube snake and do the exact same thing I'm going to show you. It's just a smaller scale. Okay, I'm going to make this a little longer. Get a little crumbs in it, it's fine. All right, so now we're going to take our fingers and boop it. Boop, 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 boop. So it kind of looks like a piece of bubble gum. And then you're going to pick an end and you're going to wrap it up. Roll it like a fruit by the foot. And that is a simple way to get a rose. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Tube snake. And then boop, 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 boop. And then I'm going to roll it up. Sweet. I'm coming to my cake. I gotta look at it for this. I'm just gonna put them on either side of the heart. And then I'm gonna take the leaf and I'm just gonna add some bigger leaves. So like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe a little in here. And that's it, you guys. We're done. Yeah. And there we go, you guys. That is it. That is the birch tree cake. Like, look at it. It's so cute. And also, like I said before, I'm a fan of vanilla and chocolate. So like this is right up my alley as far as flavors go. And plus it's pretty tree and it just makes me happy. So thank you so much for coming today. I hope that you had fun. I hope that you enjoy eating your beautiful creations. And speaking of your beautiful creations, if you would like to share them with us so I can see what you decorated, because 1, I love seeing what you guys do. 2, I'm a little nosy. And 3, it's just fun. Like, it's just fun, which I think goes back to number 1. But I really do love seeing what you guys do. And if you would like to share your lovely photos with us, you can go to our website, which is mymakestudio.com, and click on the Chef Chayla tab. And then there will be an option for you to upload your pictures and also become part of our Bakers Club, and you'll get a baking certificate from me. So if you would like, feel free to do that. But if you're like, no, that is okay. You do not have to show me your cakes if you don't want to. Either way, I hope you have a good time eating them and that you had fun today. And you know what? Well, if you do want to look on the website, even if it's not just to share pictures with us, we have a bunch of other cake kits. So we have like geodes and unicorns and monsters. And then we also have square cakes. So we have like a beach and a garden and a graveyard during Halloween. And then if you just want some cupcakes, we have so many cupcakes. We've got ones that look like food. We have more things like this. So we've got some succulents, some flowers. We've got all kinds of options on there. So if you need a little bit more cake decorating in your life and you want to hang out with me, go ahead and check out our website. We have all those other options on there if you would like to decorate some more things. And if you would like to follow any of our social medias, they are all at My Make Studio. So our Facebook, our Instagram, and our TikTok are all at My Make Studio. Our Instagram and our Facebook are good places to follow for like new and upcoming things, or if we have any events going on. I don't know if you know, but we're Colorado based and we've started doing some in-person things again, which is exciting. So if you want to see what's going on in Colorado, like maybe where you can meet us for a class, or if you're in another state and just want to see like what we have going on, those are good places to follow. And then our TikTok is a little bit more like weird stuff that I'm doing. Like if you want to see how I got this hair color, or how I do makeup, or what my dog is up to, or what random treat I'm making at home, that is a good place to follow. But again, all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are all at My Make Studio. And that is it, you guys. Again, thank you so much for coming. I really do love that we can do this. I think it's so cool, and I'm so happy that you're here. And I really do hope that you enjoy eating your beautiful creations. And as always, everyone, stay creative.